In the heart of a lush valley, nestled between rolling hills and golden fields, there was a village known as Tamora. It was a place of peace, where the rivers never ran dry and the soil bore rich harvests. This prosperity was not by chance, it was because of Abeni, a young woman with a gift unlike any other. From the moment she was born, the elders whispered that she was touched by the spirits of the land. As a child, wherever she stepped, flowers bloomed. Sick animals would stir back to life at her touch, and wilted crops would regain their color with just a sweep of her hands. The people of Tamora revered her, and Abeni used her gift freely, never asking for anything in return. But peace, like the seasons, does not last forever. One summer, a devastating drought swept across the valley. The sun burned hotter than ever before, cracking the earth and drying up rivers. Crops withered to dust, and sickness spread among the people like wildfire. While Tamora remained untouched under Abeni's care, the neighboring villages, Zimbala and Nyaga, were not so lucky. Zimbala was a wealthy and powerful village, known for its warriors and vast storehouses. Its people had grown proud, believing themselves above the struggles of others. Nyaga, on the other hand, was small and humble, its people kind and generous even in their suffering. Word of Abeni's power had long spread beyond Tamora, and when the drought and sickness worsened, both villages sent envoys to seek her help. The messengers from Zimbala arrived first, dressed in fine robes despite their desperation. They carried gifts of gold and precious stones, bowing before Abeni as they spoke. "Great healer," their leader said, "our village is in peril. Our children grow weak, our fields have turned to dust. Come to Zimbala, and you shall be rewarded beyond your wildest dreams. We will make you a queen, give you riches and honor." Before Abeni could answer, the messengers from Nyaga arrived. Unlike the men from Zimbala, they had no gold to offer, only hollow eyes and trembling hands. Their leader, an elderly woman with tears in her eyes, knelt before Abeni. "We have nothing to give you," she said, her voice breaking. "But our people are dying. If you do not help us, we will not last another moon. We ask not for miracles, only for mercy." Abeni looked at both groups, her heart heavy. She knew her power was great, but it was not limitless. Healing an entire village would take everything she had, too much to do for two. She could only save one. And she had to choose. Abeni could not decide without seeing the suffering with her own eyes. So, she set out on a journey, accompanied by a small group of Tamora's elders, with Kofi, her childhood friend, by her side. Their first stop was Zimbala. As they neared the village, they saw the effects of the drought, fields reduced to barren wastelands, rivers dried to cracked earth, and people slumped under the weight of hunger and sickness. But even in their suffering, Zimbala's people carried themselves with pride. The village chief, a broad-shouldered man adorned in golden bracelets, greeted Abeni with a smile that did not reach his eyes. "You are welcome, great healer," he said, his voice rich with authority. "Zimbala is honored by your presence." As Abeni walked through the village, she saw the desperation in the people's eyes. Yet, she also noticed something else. Behind the chief's grand hut stood large storehouses, locked and heavily guarded. Peering inside, she saw sacks of grain and jugs of water, enough to feed the people for weeks. And yet, the villagers still starved. Abeni turned to the chief. "Why do you have food locked away while your people suffer?" The chief stiffened. "We must protect our resources. If we give too much, we will have nothing left." Abeni's heart sank. Even in the face of disaster, Zimbala hoarded its wealth, unwilling to share with those in need. The next morning, Abeni and her companions traveled to Nyaga. Unlike Zimbala, the village had no grand gates or storehouses. The people were thin, their clothes worn, but they met Abeni with smiles despite their pain. An old woman led Abeni to a small hut where a sick child lay, his breath shallow. The woman knelt beside him, pressing a damp cloth to his forehead. "We share what little we have," the woman said softly, "but it is not enough." Abeni looked around the village and saw the same generosity everywhere, families pooling their food together so no one starved alone, elders giving their portions to the young. Nyaga had nothing, yet its people share everything. As night fell, Abeni sat alone, gazing at the stars. Kofi approached, his expression thoughtful. You've seen both villages now, he said. What will you do? Abeni let out a weary sigh. If I heal one village, the other will perish. If I do nothing, they will both suffer. How can I choose? Kofi sat beside her. Zimbala promises you riches. Nyaga has nothing to offer. But which village truly deserves to be saved? Abeni closed her eyes. She already knew the answer. But the decision would change everything. At dawn, Abeni called for a gathering in both villages. She stood before the people, her presence commanding yet gentle, and made a simple request. I will help the village that proves itself worthy, she announced. Each of you must share your remaining food and water with the other village. Only those who show kindness in hardship will receive my gift. The response was immediate and telling. In Zimbala, the chief's face darkened with suspicion. He turned to his council, whispering hurriedly, then addressed Abeni with a forced smile. We respect your wisdom, great healer, he said, but how can we give away what little we have left? If we do, we will surely perish. Abeni remained silent, watching. No one stepped forward. The villagers exchanged nervous glances, afraid to defy their chief. Even those who had plenty hesitated, unwilling to part with their stockpiled supplies. Disappointed but unsurprised, Abeni traveled to Nyaga. There, the people gathered without hesitation. Though their faces were weary, their eyes held warmth. An elder woman stepped forward first, carrying a small basket of yams. It is not much, she said, placing it at Abeni's feet. But let it ease another's hunger. Then, one by one, the villagers followed, each bringing what little they could spare. A young boy, barely more than skin and bone, carried a single loaf of bread. A father with 3 children placed a small jug of water. Even those with next to nothing found something to give. Abeni's heart swelled. She had her answer. That night, she stood before both villages once more. She turned to Zimbala first, her voice calm but firm. You have wealth, yet you let your own people starve. You have food, yet you refuse to share with your neighbors. Your hearts are closed, and because of that, I cannot help you. The chief bristled, but before he could speak, Abeni raised a hand and turned to Nyaga. You have nothing, yet you give everything. You understand the meaning of true kindness. Because of that, I will save you. At her words, a powerful wind swept through the village, carrying with it the scent of rain. The ground trembled, and before their eyes, the dried-up river began to flow again, its waters pure and clear. The barren fields turned green, and the sickly villagers stood, their strength returning.
Nyaga had been saved. And Zimbala had sealed its own fate. As the sun set over the suffering land, the leaders of Zimbala gathered in secret. Their frustration had turned to anger, their desperation into greed. They had expected Abeni to heal them without question, but now she hesitated, daring to test them as if they were beggars. This is an insult, growled Chief Okoro, his eyes sharp with fury. She plays games while our people suffer. We are the stronger village. She belongs to us. His council murmured in agreement. We cannot let her choose Nyaga, said one of the elders. If she heals them and not us, they will rise, and we will fall. A heavy silence filled the room. Then Chief Okoro slammed his fist on the wooden table. Then we will make the choice for her. At midnight, while Nyaga slept, a group of Zimbala's strongest warriors crept into the village, their steps silent as shadows. They found Abeni resting beneath an old baobab tree, her breath steady, unaware of the danger closing in. The warriors moved quickly, ropes in hand, ready to seize her. But Kwaku, a young hunter from Nyaga, had sensed something was wrong. He had stayed awake, watching. The moment he saw the strangers reach for Abeni, he cried out. Ambush! Abeni's eyes snapped open just as rough hands grabbed her arms. Panic surged through her, but she did not scream. Instead, she summoned the power within her. A surge of light erupted from her hands, burning the warrior's skin as if they had touched fire. They stumbled back, shielding their eyes. Kidnap her! Chief Okoro's voice rang through the air. The village awakened, torches flaring in the darkness. The people of Nyaga rushed forward, their hearts pounding with fury. They had welcomed Abeni, protected her, and now Zimbala sought to steal her away. The battle was swift. Though Nyaga was weaker in number, their determination outweighed Zimbala's greed. They fought with all they had, driving the warriors back. Abeni stood in the center of the chaos, her heart pounding. The choice was clear. She raised her hands once more, and the earth itself responded. A powerful gust of wind howled through the village, sending Zimbala's warriors sprawling. The trees seemed to grow taller, their roots twisting to form an impenetrable barrier between the two villages. Zimbala had sealed its fate. Breathing heavily, Abeni turned to the people of Nyaga. "I know now where my power is meant to be," she said. "I will heal this land. I will heal you." And with those words, the storm of her destiny finally settled. Abeni stood at the heart of Nyaga, surrounded by villagers who watched with hope and fear. The land was dry, the crops brittle, and the sick lay weak in their huts. She knew the power she was about to unleash would take everything she had, but there was no other way. She knelt down, pressing her hands to the cracked earth. Closing her eyes, she called upon the energy that had been passed down through generations, the gift that made her both a blessing and a curse. A warm golden glow spread from her fingertips, sinking into the soil. At first, nothing happened. Then, the ground trembled. Tiny green sprouts broke through the cracks, growing taller and stronger with every heartbeat. The river that had dried up shimmered, its waters rushing back as if answering her call. Gasps filled the air as the sick, who had been weak and feverish, suddenly sat up, their eyes wide with renewed life. Their pain was gone. Their strength returned. Abeni's breath came in short gasps. The power drained her faster than she expected. She swayed, her vision blurring, but she pushed on, giving everything she had left. The trees blossomed, fruit bursting from their branches. The animals returned from the forests, no longer afraid of famine. Nyaga was alive again. Then, the light in Abeni's hands flickered. A sharp pain shot through her chest, and darkness crept into her vision. Her body gave out, and she collapsed onto the fresh grass. The villagers rushed to her side. "She's not breathing," a woman cried. "No, she must not leave us." The elders gathered, chanting prayers of gratitude, pleading for her life. Children wept, touching her lifeless hands. Then, Kweku stepped forward, his eyes filled with determination. He knelt beside her, pressing a hand to her forehead. "She gave everything for us," he whispered. "Now it's our turn." One by one, the villagers gathered around Abeni. They placed their hands on her, offering their own strength, their own love. A gentle wind swirled through the village, carrying their whispered prayers into the sky. And slowly, Abeni's chest rose with a weak breath. She was still alive. Meanwhile, in Zimbala, the land remained cursed. Their rivers ran dry, their crops refused to grow. The people, once powerful and wealthy, now turned on one another in desperation. They had chosen greed over kindness, and now they paid the price. As the sun set, Nyaga rejoiced. They had been saved, not just by magic, but by love, by unity, by selflessness. And at the heart of it all lay Abeni, still weak, but alive, forever cherished, forever remembered. Abeni lay in the heart of Nyaga, her body still weak, but her spirit unbroken. The villagers never left her side, tending to her with gentle hands and grateful hearts. Slowly, her strength returned. She was no longer just their savior, she was their family. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, a messenger arrived from Zimbala. The once proud village, now humbled by their suffering, had sent word. "We were wrong," the elder's letter admitted. "We let greed blind us, and now we see the cost. Teach us, Abeni. Show us another way." Abeni, still recovering, smiled softly. Though they had wronged her, she knew that redemption was possible for anyone willing to change. With the support of Nyaga, she sent a message in return. "Prosperity is not in what we take, but in what we share," she wrote. "Come to us, not as rulers, but as neighbors. Work beside us, not above us, and the land will heal." Humbled, Zimbala sent their people to learn. They worked the land with Nyaga, sharing food, wisdom, and labor. Over time, their barren fields began to bloom again, not by magic, but by unity and effort. As seasons passed, Abeni watched from her place among the villagers. Nyaga thrived, not just in crops and water, but in spirit. Zimbala, once lost in greed, was now finding its way through compassion. She had chosen well. And as the people sang and celebrated under the bright moon, Abeni knew that her gift had not just saved a village, it had changed the hearts of many. This was the true miracle,